All right, guys, let's get into this story. This is a really crazy story, and I can't even believe the outcome. What's up, you guys? We are back with another video. If you are new here, my name is Ariel. I love true crime, and I like to cover cases that interest me. But if there are any cases that interest you that you would like me to cover, please leave them in the comments, or you can shoot them to my email. I believe my email is in my bio. But today we are going to cover the woman who murdered her husband basically for a life insurance policy. And she like wrote sex novels and stuff, I guess. I've been watching different videos on her all day today, and one guy's like, she was just a very horny old lady. So I'm going to play this clip after I give you guys like a brief little rundown of what I have printed out. And then we'll see what we can find clips wise. And then I'll link what I can link that it would be copyrighted. You know, you guys know the drill now. By the way, I've gotten a few new subscribers. Thank you guys so much. Like, so freaking much. This is so cool. I love just like checking my YouTube studio and seeing even if it's like 1 or 2 new people. It's so freaking awesome. And if you're here from Reddit, thank you so much. Your support means the world. So this is the murder of Daniel Brophy. And he was an American chef and culinary instructor who was found murdered at the Oregon Culinary Institute in Portland, Oregon. On May 25th of 2022, his wife, Nancy, was found guilty of second-degree murder for his death. She was sentenced to life in prison. Now, when it comes down to the murder, I actually saw or listened to like a podcast or something about this specific case years ago. And when I was looking up information about it today, I was like, oh, crap. That is that one case. So on the morning of June 2nd, 2018, Daniel Brophy left for work at the Oregon Culinary Institute, where he was a teacher. Students arrived later and found his body in a kitchen, dead from 2 gunshots. The death was investigated as a homicide. Now, during this investigation, suspicion later fell on his wife, Nancy. The daughter of the 2 lawyers, was born and raised. They're giving us like a background. I'll link the Wikipedia if you guys want to know more about her. Apparently, she was quite the character on the stand. And of course, she took the stand, you guys. And I did see a few clips of it when I was getting ready to film this. And it was truly just like her and her defense attorney were just like cackling with each other. It was like they were just having a grand old time. I think they both were married previously. At trial, the prosecution assembled a case built on circumstantial evidence that they said indicated Crampton Brophy, which she was married before, so that was her other last name, was a murder. They argued that her false account of her whereabouts on the morning of the murder indicated her account was untrustworthy. For motive, prosecutors alleged that Nancy was in financial distress and killed her husband for several life insurance policies totaling around $1.4 million, as well as sole ownership of the $300,000 house. Forensic evidence indicated that Daniel Brophy had been shot by 2 bullets from a Glock pistol. The prosecution entered evidence that Mrs. Crampton Brophy, Nancy, had purchased a receiver blank kit of parts from the internet. My printer has been so messed up today. Every single other sentence like marked through. So she had the same exact gun. And then also, I believe that camera footage caught her driving in her minivan at like right around the time that this would have occurred, and it was just very, very obvious. So let me go ahead and mute myself and let's dig into what we have here.
Literally named How to Murder Your Husband, who was then charged for the shooting of her husband years prior. So I obviously took an interest in this case. Daniel Brophy was a self-proclaimed romance novelist who lived in Portland, Oregon with her late husband Daniel Brophy, who was only 63 when he passed. He was shot in the early hours at 7:30 in the morning with one gunshot wound in the back on June 2nd, 2018, right as he arrived to his job teaching at the Oregon Culinary Institute. He was found shortly after by his students who were quick to call 911, and officials say he died at the scene. Details of what led police to suspect Nancy Brophy and her husband's murder were not available. Coin 6 News in Portland reported at the time that a judge ordered the probable cause affidavit in the case to remain sealed while the investigation is ongoing. She then made this post on Facebook. For my Facebook friends and family, I have sad news to relay. My husband and best friend, Chef Dan Brophy, was killed yesterday morning. For those of you who are close to me and feel this deserved a phone call, you are right, but I'm struggling to make sense of everything right now. There is a candlelight vigil at the Oregon Culinary Institute tomorrow, Monday, June 4th at 7 p.m. While I appreciate all of your loving responses, I am overwhelmed. Please save phone calls for a few days until I can function. Neighbors of Daniel told the Oregonian, I don't know how to say that Nancy Brophy had what they considered to be an odd reaction to her husband's death. Don McConnell, a neighbor for 6 years, told the newspaper she never showed any signs of being upset or sad. I would say she had an air of relief, like it was almost a godsend. McConnell also spoke to Coin 6 News and told them that once he got the nerve to ask Nancy about the investigation. He asked Nancy if investigators were keeping in touch with her, to which she replied, "No, I'm out of the loop." And he said, "Well, what do you mean?" And she said, "They consider me a suspect." Friends and family expressed disbelief that Nancy Brophy could be responsible for her husband's death. According to KGW8 in Portland, the couple had been married for 26 years. Friend Tanya Medlin told the news station, "I've known her for 30 years. I can't imagine. I just don't think she's capable." Heather Kennett, who is Nancy Brophy's niece, wrote in a Facebook page established to the memory of her uncle that her aunt cannot have committed this crime. "I am terribly saddened and angered by her arrest and false accusations of having murdered Dan for many reasons, not the least of which being the thought that they had stopped looking for the person who did the murder of Dan. Nancy did not commit this horrendous crime. Dan was the love of her life. They had a happy marriage with a lot of laughter, a lot of great food, and a lot of Brophyisms, and there is nothing Nancy would value more than their life together that would cause her to have taken his life and left her own with this giant gaping hole." Students of Daniel's also said that they would have never suspected his wife to be the murderer, as they assumed it was probably an older student with some sort of vendetta against him. Oregon Culinary Institute described the faculty member's violent death as a senseless act. In a post on the school's Facebook page, they wrote, "Dan Brophy was an outstanding and caring culinary professional and educator. The thousands of students who were fortunate enough to call him their instructor loved and respected him for giving them his utmost best. Our community is in shock and we are grieving with the loss of an amazing human being, friend, and chef." On her website, Nancy Brophy said her husband's mantra was, "Life is a science project." She credited him with the chickens and turkeys in their backyard, a vegetable garden, and a hot meal every night. Back on the topic of her stories, she described them as pretty men and strong women about families that don't always work and about the joy of finding love and the difficulties of making it stay. Yes, that's literally the quote. One of the novels in the series is called The Wrong Husband, part of the Wrong Never Felt So Right series. The book's plot involves the abused wife of a senator who fakes her death on a cruise and is then hunted by a private paramilitary organization hired to find her body so her husband can collect the insurance money. Also on her website, in her About section, the first line is quite literally, "Writers are liars." I don't remember who said that, but it's not true. Which is interesting to me, because the suspected motive behind killing her husband was his $1.4 million insurance policy. No other suspects have ever been mentioned in this case, and Chaffer cameras show Nancy's minivan driving near the institution around the time of the murder. Now, I know everyone wants the link to the How to Murder Your Husband essay, but sadly and quite obviously, it's been removed from her website. And on the most shocking twist of this video, the essay actually cannot be used as evidence in trial, as it was written as a writer's prompt 11 years ago. She was arrested and charged with the murder 3 months after his death, but due to COVID, the trial has been taking a bit to come up. She is currently still in custody, and her next court trial is set for September.
Okay, so this was 2 years ago. She has since then been tried and convicted, and sentenced. So that was a great, let's go ahead and like, and let's subscribe. That was an amazing little rundown. I just didn't play the rest of it because it's just his personal thoughts. I will link this video just like I do all of them. But one of the main things that I do want to show is some of her key moments from her cross-examination.
And the neighborhoods and what we could get. So, yeah, I was in Vernonia a fair amount.
When you were going to sell your house, would you agree that you had about a little under $250,000 owed on your mortgage?
I would think that's right.
And you did sell your house later that year, is that correct?
No, I sold it the next year. I sold it in 2019.
Oh, when in 2019?
I'm going to say February, March, somewhere in there. Maybe as late as April.
And it sold for about $565,000.
Yes.
So after fees and realtor fees and all that, would you agree that you probably would make a little less than $250,000?
Yeah, I didn't see the settlement statements on that, so I really don't know.
Okay. But that wouldn't, okay, well, we'll move on. Now, you said part of the reason of selling the house was basically you don't necessarily want stairs anymore.
Yes.
But at the time that Dan died and the time you guys were deciding to sell the house, you two were both relatively healthy still.
Yes.
You could still do the stairs just fine.
I was struggling with arthritis in my knee, but yeah,
Okay, but you didn't, you still had your bedroom upstairs.
we did.
You didn't move down to the main floor to deal
No.
with that? Okay. I was a little confused about the discussion of the tiny houses.
Oh,
So whose idea was that?
it was Dan's.
Okay.
Dan, who needs more room than anybody I know, said, "Oh, we could live in a tiny house." No, we couldn't. But his fantasy life, like mine is going to be an expat, Dan's was we could live in these little tiny houses, and that would work fine for us. And I thought, smaller than our kitchen now, which Dan was spilling out of. No, we couldn't live like that. And the other thing is you have to be in really good health to live in a tiny house because most of the bedrooms are loft-like bedrooms and you have to climb up this ladder, night and day to get up there. Plus, I mean, real frankly, once you hit that 40 age group, you and I both know that we're up more in the middle of the night than we've ever wanted to be. And I don't want to go up and down the stairs or the ladder 18 times in the middle of the night.
So was he joking or?
No, he was serious, but it was a fantasy. It was like lots of things. It was like my wanting to go to Portugal. This would be a fabulous idea. And so, we sing and dance to the other one, and the other one pokes a hole in that balloon, and says, that's not going to work for us.
But so he was.
This next portion is unimportant in the grand scheme of things, but it's enlightening to Nancy's psyche. Watch how quickly Nancy goes from laughing and joking to dead serious. The swift change is subtle, but it's one of the key reasons as to why the jury and everyone watching would find her off-putting and inauthentic.
His ideal situation was that he would have his own tiny house and you would have your own.
No, he would he would have a house for junk, and then he would live in mine where it would be tiny.
So the plan was to subdivide this property.
Yes.
You and Dan discussed.
That swift shift is deeply illuminating as to how authentic her laugh was, and how the majority of what she is showcasing on the stand is an act. I'm going to fast forward past her testimony about packing up her home and other statements that aren't critically important.
I think there's been a lot of testimony that agree that Dan was a really beloved member of the community,
Yes, he was.
held in high regard.
Yes, he did.
Would you agree that his death was a devastating blow to the entire community?
I would.
Everybody loved Dan, right?
As far as I know.
Yeah.
I certainly did. But I would have people come up to me all the time and say, "You're Chef Brophy's wife?" I love Chef Brophy. I said, "Me too."
Right. You're talking about before.
Before.
And then after, outpouring of love and support for this man.
Yes.
Imagine the love of your life, the person you had been married to for over a decade, died, and you were being questioned as to your involvement in their death. Someone brings up how beloved they were, and the best, most emotion you can muster is a blasé, almost annoyed statement about how everyone loved him, including you. Nancy's temperament is not in line with a grieving spouse who has just been wrongly accused. It's as if she barely knew him. This is in stark contrast to one of his students who testified, who was incredibly distraught.
And he deserved every bit of it.
Is it fair to say that there's numerous qualities that Dan had that you admired,
Yes,
and that he admired about you?
yes.
I mean, in some ways, we're even envious of the way that people looked up to him. And
Oh, no. Oh, no. I can remember a dinner that Karen and I and Dan went to, and we all sat down at the table. I think it was back when Hall Street Grill was still in business, and appetizers came out. And we all looked at each other and said, we didn't order anything. And the person putting it down said, no, the guys in the kitchen saw Chef Brophy come in and they wanted him to try this appetizer plate. It was nothing to go to dinner with Dan and have the chef come out of the kitchen and sit down and say, we're thinking about changing our menus and here's what we're thinking about doing. What do you think of that? That was not envious. That was proud. I was delighted that people thought so highly of this man, and with reason. He was smart, and he gave them his full attention and gave them his
Number of reasons. The prosecution is showing her the gun kit that she purchased for herself the November prior to Dan's killing. The gun kit, as she just stated, was almost entirely intact, with nearly every part present and accounted for. However, one part is missing, and that was the part that was used on the gun she owned with Dan during the killing, that she got rid of directly after and replaced with the original part, to make it appear as if the gun had never been fired. Nancy's reaction and repeated statements that she doesn't know enough about the gun kit to label various parts flies in the face of her previous testimony that she heavily researched getting a gun kit and putting it together prior to buying it. She has said, time after time, that she only went to the Ghost Gun site and article as often as she did because she used it as research for her book, and she wanted to make sure she knew how it worked so her poorly selling romance book could be incredibly accurate. But here she is saying that after going to those articles, watching countless videos and buying the kit, she had said in the past. It's as if she just doesn't want to agree.
because we've talked about it and talked. I didn't do any of the. Wait, let's stop. Ask your question to me again, and let me see if
on the 26th, the first day, I believe it was
Okay.
a Monday,
Right,
while Dan was at work,
right,
you drove out to that area.
right.
And according to cell site location information, it appears that you drove out there, turned around, and drove back.
I don't think I drove that far out there. I mean, I know that it's out there. I know because we've talked about it and talked about it and talked about it, but I have never, ever, ever been there. And if I had been going there, I would have gone there with Dan, and I would have gone there we ended up at the closest I got to it. We had 2 minutes, 10 minutes that I could have spent there. I can think if I was just going out to fire a gun at dirt, that I could have found someplace a whole lot closer to my house than driving an hour and a half to make it.
Right. It says, we, the jury, duly impaneled and sworn in the above entitled cause, do find our verdicts upon the counts submitted to us as follows. Count 1, murder in the second degree, guilty. And then with regards to the two questions, the state alleging that during the commission of this felony, the defendant caused or threatened the use of a firearm, the answer is yes. And then the state further alleges that during the commission of this felony, the defendant and the victim were married, the answer is yes. Now, I will ask juror number 46.
I will look for the direct link for the actual sentencing, but I just keep hearing them like talking about scheduling, so I don't know why. I don't know really what's going on. I kind of like to just get right to the point where it's like cameras on the judge, and then the judge is like, I sentence you, blah, blah, blah. But I'm not getting that here. So I I will link everything down below, and tell me what you guys think about this case. And have any of you guys read any of her books? That would be. I hear that they are quite not that great. But that's all for this one, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye. Thanks so much for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and share with some friends.